I still remember the first time I met her mother. We'd just started dating, me and Claire. I was 26, she was 24, and I thought we had something real. She laughed at my dumb jokes, made killer spaghetti, and told me she'd never met anyone who made her feel safe before. Back then, that meant the world to me. I brought her to meet my folks on a Sunday afternoon, chicken on the grill, sweet tea in old mason jars, nothing fancy. My mom said Claire was sweet. My dad said she was too pretty for me, jokingly. We all laughed. But when it came time for me to meet her family, that was a different story. Her mom's name was Beverly. She had sharp red nails and eyes like a hawk. The first thing she said to me when Claire introduced us was, "So you're the mechanic?" Yeah. I work down at Wendell's Auto, on Route 9. She didn't smile. Didn't even nod. Just looked me up and down like I was a gum wrapper stuck to her shoe. "You went to college, right?" she asked Claire, not me. "Yeah, Mom," Claire said, sounding annoyed already. "You know I did. I just wonder how someone with a degree in marketing ends up with someone who fixes carburetors for a living." I let it go. First meetings are awkward. I figured she'd warm up over time. She didn't. From the day Claire and I got married, Beverly treated me like I'd tricked her daughter. I was good enough to carry heavy things, fix their broken AC, or change the oil in her Lexus, but never good enough to be called family. Every Christmas dinner, every backyard barbecue, she'd find a way to remind Claire that she deserved someone who could give her more. "You know," she said one night at dinner, swirling red wine in a crystal glass like she was hosting a soap opera, "Dr. Philip's son just opened another chiropractic office in Seattle. Has a boat, too. Imagine that." Claire forced a smile. "Good for him, Mom. She always brings him up, doesn't she?" I said on the way home. "She's just old-fashioned," Claire mumbled. "She wants me to have security." "I thought I was your security." "You are," she said. But she didn't look at me when she said it. Things didn't fall apart all at once. It was more like a slow leak, hard to notice until your tires are flat on the highway. I started catching little things. Claire texting with her phone tilted away from me. Changing her perfume, wearing lipstick on random errands. And she started going to that antique store a lot. "I'm just looking for old frames," she said once, holding a bag with a cracked brass picture holder. "Don't we have enough stuff?" I asked. "I like old things. They have character." One night, she came home flustered. Hair messed up, shirt tucked weird. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing," she said too quickly. "I just ran into someone I knew in town. I didn't push. I should've. I found out the truth in the worst way. I was picking up a used alternator from a guy who lived right behind the antique shop. Nice old guy, smoked a pipe and liked to talk about the Vietnam War. As we were talking, he nodded toward the shop's back window. "You ever go in there?" he asked. "My wife does," I said. He smirked. "Ah. Pretty blonde lady." "Yeah, I've seen her. She's real close with old Brent." "Brent?" "Clerk. Guy with the beard. Think he used to sell typewriters or something. Seen her in there a lot. One time I coulda sworn they were, well, never mind. Ain't my business." I didn't say anything. Just nodded and got back in my truck. My hands were shaking too much to drive straight. That night, I followed her. I parked across the street from the antique shop around 6, when she said she was grabbing groceries. I waited. And sure enough, 20 minutes later, she walked right through the shop's front door in jeans and a green blouse I'd never seen before. I sat there for 10 minutes. Then 20. 30. Then the lights dimmed in the shop. And that's when I saw them. Her silhouette in his, behind the front display, moving close. Her hand on his chest. His mouth on hers. Then he lifted her up onto one of those old Victorian tables they always had cluttered in the front. My heart didn't break. It just stopped. I didn't confront her that night. I went home. Drank 3 beers in the garage. Stared at the walls like they had answers. She came in an hour later with a bag of apples and a frozen pizza. "Hey, babe," she said. "Sorry it took so long." Long line. I just nodded. She kissed my cheek. And I let her. But here's where the story turns. Because I didn't just suffer in silence. No. I remembered something. A little rumor I'd heard from her dad once, after a few too many bourbons and a long sigh over the backyard fire pit. "Beverly ain't no saint," he muttered. "Hell, you think Claire's perfect? Apple doesn't fall far." "What do you mean?" I asked, half drunk. He looked at me. Then laughed bitterly. "She cheated on me, years ago. Right in town. Guess where? That damn antique store. With Brent. That same slick bastard. I never forgot that. And now? Now it was time to let the whole town know." I didn't sleep much that night. Just laid there in bed, watching the ceiling fan spin like it was counting down the seconds of my life with her. Claire was curled up beside me, breathing soft and even. Like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't just let some dusty antique store clerk put his hands all over her on a table we once joked about buying. In the dark, my mind spun. My heart didn't ache the way I thought it would. It boiled. Not just from what she did, but from how smug her mother would be if she ever found out. And then I thought, what if she already knows? Beverly had always hated me. Maybe this whole thing was her doing. Planting seeds, poisoning Claire's mind, whispering about doctors and lawyers and successful men. Hell, maybe she wanted this to happen. Maybe she wanted me out of the picture. But she'd messed up. Because she didn't know that I knew her secret too. The next morning, Claire was gone before I woke up. Left a note on the kitchen table in her tidy handwriting, "Went to Mom's. Be back later. Left you some pancakes in the fridge. Love you." I read it twice, then crumpled it up. I didn't touch the pancakes. Instead, I grabbed my boots, got in the truck, and drove to the edge of town. To a place I knew no one would look for me, a little diner behind the train station, where the coffee's bad and the gossip's worse. My buddy Tommy was already there, reading the classifieds like he did every Friday. He looked up. "Hey, man. You look like death warmed over." "Rough night," I said, sliding into the booth. "Got a minute?" He raised an eyebrow. "For you?" "Always." I laid it all out. What I saw through the window. The lies. The store. Brent. Tommy let out a low whistle. "Damn, man. That's cold." "Yeah," I said. "But here's the kicker, her mom. She did the same thing. Same store. Same clerk." Tommy blinked. "Wait. What?" "Claire's dad told me. Years ago. Said Beverly had a fling with Brent in that antique shop. Same damn spot, probably. It's like it runs in the family." He leaned back, letting it sink in. "Well," he said slowly, "you're sitting on a powder keg, my friend." "Exactly. And I'm done playing the fool." I didn't go home right away. Instead, I went for a long drive. Past the cornfields. Past the old steel mill. I stopped at a lake Claire and I used to visit when we first dated. We'd come here on weekends, make sandwiches, talk about dreams we had for the future. A cabin. A couple kids. A dog named Rusty. Funny how quick dreams rot when the foundation's cracked. That night, I walked back into our house just as she was coming down the hallway in her robe. "Hey," she said, casual like nothing happened. "Where've you been?" "Out," I replied. She looked at me for a beat. "Something wrong?" I wanted to say everything. I wanted to scream. But I just looked her in the eye and said, "We'll talk soon." She froze. Just for a second. A flicker of guilt behind her eyes. Then she smiled. "Okay." 2 days later, I made my move. Sunday dinner. Beverly invited us over like she always did, acting like some southern matriarch even though we lived in central Ohio. She set the table fancy. Real silverware, linen napkins. Pot roast, green beans, red wine. Claire was quiet the whole time. Beverly, though, she was in rare form. "So," she said, carving the meat with a smug look, "Claire tells me you're still working at the garage. Still chasing bolts." I smiled politely. "Yep. Pays the bills." "Well, for now. But a woman like Claire, she could have anything. Be anywhere. Be with someone like Brent, maybe?" I cut in. Claire's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Beverly blinked. "Excuse me? You know Brent. That smooth-talking clerk at the antique store. The one you slept with, 15 years ago?" The room went dead silent. Claire stared at me. "What did you just say?" I looked straight at Beverly. "I know, Beverly. I know you cheated on your husband in that same damn store. With the same guy your daughter just," I stopped myself. "Well. History repeats." Beverly's face turned pale, then red. "How dare you?" "No, how dare you," I snapped. "You've been in my ear for years, calling me a loser. Poisoning Claire. Telling her she could do better. But guess what? You're no better. You're just bitter and lonely and hiding behind a wine glass and a smug smile." Claire stood up. "Is this true?" Beverly didn't answer. Claire asked again, louder. "Mom. Is it true?" Beverly looked down. Claire's voice cracked. "I can't believe this." "I can," I said. "Because now I see where she learned how to lie." After that night, the house got quiet. Claire moved into the guest room. Beverly stopped calling. People started whispering. Small towns are like that, news travels faster than the mail. Folks who used to roll their eyes at me in the grocery store suddenly gave me quiet nods. I heard from Tommy that Brent closed the antique shop for a few days. Vacation, he told people. Sure. I didn't feel proud. Not really. But I felt free. And that was something. It's funny how quiet a house gets when trust dies. Claire still lived under the same roof, but everything had changed. Her laughter used to fill these rooms, now it barely made a whisper. The clinking of her coffee mug in the kitchen, the soft shuffle of her slippers in the hallway, the closing of the bathroom door, all of it felt distant, like echoes from another life. She didn't say much after the dinner at her mother's. Neither did I. We moved around each other like ghosts, both of us pretending the wreckage wasn't still smoldering between us. One morning, about a week later, I caught her staring out the living room window, still in her bathrobe. She looked tired. Pale. She hadn't worn makeup in days. "You gonna talk to me?" I asked. She jumped slightly, like she hadn't heard me come in. What's there to say? Plenty, I thought. But instead, I just said, "Why'd you do it?" She didn't answer right away. Her fingers tightened around the coffee mug. "Because you're not what I imagined for myself," she said quietly. That stung worse than I expected. "Your mom tell you that?" She turned. No. She didn't have to. I could feel it every time I looked at you working on a busted transmission while other husbands bought their wives trips to Europe. I wanted more. I took a step closer. And Brent was more? She looked down. I nodded slowly. Got it. Then I walked out, because if I'd stayed a second longer, I might have screamed. Later that day, Tommy called. You busy? Trying not to throw my wedding album in the fireplace. What's up? You might want to come down to Mitchell's bar. Brent's here. I paused. What's he doing there? Running his mouth. That got me moving. I pulled up 10 minutes later, boots crunching the gravel parking lot. Mitchell's bar wasn't anything fancy, just a squat, low-lit place where the floor smelled like beer and old wood, and the jukebox always leaned toward sad country ballads. I spotted Brent at the back, leaning against the counter like he owned the place. He was talking to two guys I recognized from the feed store. They were laughing. I didn't even sit down. Just walked right up behind him and said, "You having fun?" He turned, caught off guard. Well. If it ain't Claire's boy. The smug look on his face lit a fire in my chest. Say whatever you're gonna say, I told him. But say it to my face. He leaned in close. You ever think maybe she wanted it? Maybe she was tired of coming home to a nobody with grease on his hands and a gut full of pride? I didn't punch him. Though Lord knows I wanted to. Instead, I leaned in too. Funny, Brent. That's the same thing her mom said to her husband 15 years ago. Right before she bent over that exact same desk in your little antique shop. His grin cracked. Just a flicker, but I saw it. You keep running your mouth, I said low, and I'll make sure everyone in town hears exactly what you did. Both times. I turned and walked out, heart thudding. He didn't follow. That night, Claire knocked on my door. The guest room was cold, and I guessed the silence was starting to suffocate her. I heard what you said to Brent, she said. Word gets around. She sat down on the edge of the bed. Did you mean it? About telling everyone what he did with my mom? I shrugged. Wasn't bluffing, if that's what you're asking. She sighed. This whole thing, it's a mess. No kidding. She looked at me, eyes red but dry. I didn't sleep with him because of love. Or even lust. I think I just wanted to hurt someone. And you were closest. That knocked the wind out of me more than anything else. I never wanted to be like her, she whispered. But I think I became her without even noticing. I didn't say anything. What do you even say to that? I'm sorry, she said. Not just for what I did. For letting her get in my head. For making you feel like you weren't enough. I looked down at my hands. They were rough from work, scarred in a few places. Oil still under the nails, no matter how hard I scrubbed. I used to think these hands were built for fixing things. But now I wasn't sure I could fix this. I don't know what you expect me to do with that, I said softly. I don't either, she admitted. But I had to say it. She got up and walked out. And I just sat there, alone with the pieces of whatever we had left. The next morning, I called Claire's father. Hey, Ron, I said. You got a minute? Sure, son. Everything okay? Not really. I think you ought to hear what your wife's been hiding from you. There was a long pause on the line. Go on. I drove out to Ron's place just after noon. The clouds were thick that day, gray like old wool. The kind of sky that makes everything below feel heavy. He was already on his porch, arms crossed, face blank. I figured you'd come, he said. I nodded and climbed the steps. I've been turning it over in my head since the night Claire confessed. Thought you deserved the rest of the story. Ron said nothing. just tilted his head toward the backyard. We walked out past the shed, where his old lawnmower leaned like it had given up. We stopped by the swing set, the one his daughter outgrew years ago. "I know you already found out about Beverly and Brent," I began, "but I know where and when it happened." His jaw tensed. "Don't mean I want the play-by-play." "I think you do," I said, steady. "Because I needed it, too. When I learned about Claire." He didn't argue. So I told him. It was the antique store. Brent's back office. On that desk with the cracked drawer, the one he keeps half covered with that lace runner. "Beverly came in for a private appraisal," he said. 2 hours she was there. And it wasn't the first time. Ron's face stayed still, but I could see it in his eyes. A flicker of pain. Anger. Memory. "She kept going back," I added. "Brent even bragged about how she used to bring him pie from your kitchen afterward." He laughed when he said it. That part seemed to gut Ron the most. He sat down on the steps, elbows on his knees, cigarette hanging from his lips. "I always knew she stepped out on me," he muttered. "But I never knew how cold it really was." "I did too," I said. "With Claire. And your mom-in-law, Beverly? She was happy to see me crushed. Truth is, both our lives got hit with the same wrecking ball." We sat there in silence for a while. Two men, not saying much, just breathing the same heavy air. The sky above us hung still, like it was listening. The gossip mill turned like a water wheel once again. I didn't need to say a word, Ron did the rest. He told Mitchell. Mitchell told his sister. And by dinner time the story had traveled to the pharmacist, the butcher, and the woman who taught Sunday school. Beverly didn't leave her house for 3 days. Claire stayed holed up with Lauren. And Brent? Someone threw a brick through his antique store window. I heard he put up a security camera, but it didn't stop the slashed tires. I didn't feel bad. Claire came by the house on the 4th evening. She stood in the kitchen like she didn't quite belong there anymore. I was fixing a sandwich when I saw her reflection in the microwave door. "I heard you told Ron," she said, arms crossed tight over her chest. "He had a right to know," I replied without turning around. "He already knew she cheated. But he didn't know how deep the betrayal went," I said, finally facing her. "He didn't know about the desk. The pie. The same exact way Brent pulled you in." She flinched, just barely. "I didn't mean to be like her," she whispered. "Then maybe you shouldn't have followed her right into that antique shop." Her eyes welled up, but I didn't look away. "You humiliated me," I said quietly. "You turned your back on me while your mother cheered it on. And you know what? I think she hated me because I reminded her of what she lost, someone who actually stayed faithful." Claire didn't say anything for a long time. Just stood there blinking hard. "She's devastated, you know," she finally muttered. "Ron won't even look at her." "He shouldn't," I said. "She dug this grave a long time ago. Brent just helped her bury it." Claire dropped her head, then turned and walked out the front door without another word. That night I found myself parked in front of the antique store again. The window was boarded now, with a handwritten sign taped up that read, "Closed until further notice." I saw Brent inside through the glass door. He was sweeping. No smug grin. Just a tired, broken man sweeping up what was left. I didn't go in. I didn't need to. Back at the house, I noticed an envelope on the kitchen table. "I'm going to Lauren's. I don't know for how long. I just need to breathe. Claire." I read it 3 times. Then I folded it and stuck it in the junk drawer with expired coupons and dead batteries. I didn't call her. Didn't text. For once, I let the silence do the talking. 2 nights later, there was a knock at the door. I opened it and there she was, Beverly. No lipstick. No pearls. No fake sweetness. Just a plain blue sweater, jeans, and swollen eyes. "Can I come in?" she asked. I hesitated, then nodded. We sat at the kitchen table. I poured her a glass of water. She didn't touch it. "You told Ron everything," she said. I figured he deserved the truth. She nodded slowly. "I was angry back then," she said. "Ron worked too much. I felt invisible. Brent saw me." I held up a hand. "Stop. Don't explain it to me. You told Claire I was beneath her. All the while, you were doing the same thing, same clerk, same desk, same lie." She shrank a little in her chair. "I was trying to protect her," she mumbled. "From me?" I scoffed. "Or from becoming you?" She didn't answer. After a while, she looked up and said, "I'm sorry." It caught me off guard. It was the first time she'd ever said those words to me. "I'm not looking for an apology," I said. "Just maybe next time, you think twice before you destroy someone from the inside out." She stood slowly and walked to the door. Before she left, she turned and said, "You were always a better man than I gave you credit for." Then she was gone. That night, I sat on the back porch under a sky full of stars. They were clean and sharp and honest. I didn't know if Claire would ever come back. But I knew one thing for certain: I wasn't the loser they made me out to be. And that was a damn fine place to start. The days after Beverly's visit stretched out quiet and long. Claire was still gone. I didn't hear from her. Didn't expect to, honestly. The house was oddly peaceful without her or her mother's judgmental glances circling the room like vultures. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe in my own home. I took up small things to fill the time, patching a loose porch rail, fixing that leak under the kitchen sink, repainting the old garden bench. It felt good to do something with my hands. Something that stayed fixed. People in town started treating me different. I'd walk into the hardware store, and instead of side eyes or pitying looks, I'd get a simple nod. Respectful. Some even spoke up. "You did right," Mitchell said while sorting bolts behind the counter. "Should have been said a long time ago." "'Bout time someone put that antique clown in his place," said Ms. Raleigh, the barber's wife. Even old man Derry at the diner, who barely spoke to anyone, set down my coffee and said, "Brent always thought he could treat other folks' wives like antiques too, touch and take without asking." It wasn't like I needed the praise. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't help soothe the bruises Claire and Beverly left behind. One afternoon, I saw Ron again. He was standing by his pickup in the church parking lot, sipping a fountain Coke. I pulled up beside him, rolled down the window. "Hey. Hey," he said back. We stood there for a minute, two grown men in pickup trucks, too stubborn to say everything but knowing we didn't need to. "She left," Ron finally said, eyes still ahead. "Took some bags, went to stay with her sister in Vermont." "Beverly?" He nodded. "Said she needed time to figure herself out. Figure out if there's anything worth saving." "And you?" He gave a shrug. "Still figuring that out, too." I nodded, then asked, "You still goin' to Tuesday night poker?" He cracked a small grin. "You buying in this time?" "Maybe," I said. "Might even win. Hell's freezing over then." It was the first time we'd both laughed in weeks. Claire came back on a Thursday. I heard the car pull in just before sunset. I was in the shed oiling the mower blades when the sound of her door closing caught my ear. I walked out, wiping my hands on a rag, and saw her standing in the driveway, clutching a duffel bag, hair windblown. "You cut the grass," she said, looking at the yard. "Figured I'd start taking care of things again," I replied. She nodded slowly. "I've been staying with Lauren," she said. We talked. A lot. I figured, I said. She's honest. She was angry with me, Claire continued. Said I acted like a teenager, letting my mom pull the strings. Letting Brent, she stopped herself. I was wrong. Silence settled between us again. I don't know if you want me here, she said after a pause. But I had to come back and say that to your face. I looked at her then. Really looked. She was thinner. Eyes softer. Less armor. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't trying to win an argument, she was just being honest. I don't know what I want yet, I told her. But I'm not gonna slam the door shut either. She nodded. Can I come in? Yeah, I said, stepping aside. You can come in. Inside, things felt strange but not hostile. She walked slowly through the living room like it had changed while she was gone. Maybe it had. Maybe I had. She paused by the kitchen, looking down at the junk drawer. You kept my note? I shrugged. Didn't feel like throwing it away. She looked at me. Do you want to know why I did it? I hesitated, then said, only if you want to tell me. She sat down at the table and exhaled long and slow. My mom always told me to aim higher. That I deserved someone ambitious. Someone with polish. She never saw what I saw in you in the beginning, someone good. Kind. Someone who worked hard, even if it wasn't glamorous. But somewhere along the line, I let her voice get louder than mine. Brent was like a shortcut. A cheap thrill that made me feel in control. I listened. Quietly. And now? I asked. Now I know it was a mistake. One I can't erase. But if there's a chance to rebuild something, I'd take it. I leaned against the sink. The silence stretched between us again, like a bridge too damaged to cross, but not too far to try. I don't know where we go from here, Claire, I said finally. But I do know I won't be living in the shadows of other people's opinions anymore. Not yours. Not your mother's. If you're here, it's gotta be for real. I understand, she said. And for once, I believed her. Later that night, I stood in the yard, looking up at the stars again. The same ones from the other night. Still bright. Still honest. Claire stood in the doorway behind me, not saying a word. I didn't reach for her hand yet. But I didn't walk away either. Maybe that's how healing starts. Not with big declarations, but with quiet, steady steps toward something worth keeping. A week after Claire came back, things between us were calm. Not better. Not romantic. But polite. We were living like housemates who used to love each other. She slept in the guest room. I stayed in ours. We made dinner without fighting. Watched TV in silence. Took turns walking the trash to the curb. There were pauses in the conversations that used to be filled with laughter. But at least the yelling had stopped. Then Sunday morning came. I was fixing the back porch screen when I heard the knock at the door. Not a polite one. A sharp, insistent knock. I wiped my hands and opened it, and there stood Beverly. Hair done up. Lipstick perfect. Sunglasses like armor. Where's Claire? She asked, without so much as a good morning. Inside, I said. But I don't think she wants visitors. She'll talk to me, Beverly said, brushing past me like she owned the place. Claire was standing in the kitchen when her mother stormed in. Her eyes widened. Mom? What are you doing here? I came to talk sense into you, Beverly snapped. You've been gone for days, and now you're back here living with him? I stayed back, watching. Claire looked at her, jaw tight. Yes. I'm here. We're figuring things out. Beverly let out a bitter laugh. Figure what out? He humiliated you in public. Told everyone our family secrets like he was hosting a circus. I stepped forward then. No, Beverly. I told the truth. And maybe you're mad because the truth hurts. She turned on me, her eyes cold. You think dragging my name through the mud makes you a man? You think you've earned my daughter back because you aired dirty laundry? No, I said calmly. I'm not trying to earn Claire back. She's not a prize. I'm just trying to live without being disrespected by the two of you. Claire looked between us, tense. Beverly's voice dropped. You don't know what you've done, boy. You think this town respects you now? You think they won't turn on you once they get bored of your story? I stepped closer, my voice low. You're mad I told the town about you and Brent, aren't you? But what you really can't stand is that they believed me. Claire flinched. Beverly's mouth twitched. I continued. You know what they say now, Bev? That the apple didn't fall far from the tree. That maybe your daughter learned cheating and manipulation from someone very close to her. Beverly raised a hand, just for a second, like she might slap me, but then she froze. Claire's voice cut through the air. Mom. Stop. Beverly looked at her, shocked. I heard the whole story from Ron, Claire continued. About you and Brent. About how you used to sneak into that antique shop when Dad was away on business trips. How you lied to both of them. Beverly stammered, Claire, that was, years ago. I was, confused. No, Claire said, stepping forward. You were selfish. You cheated on Dad. Just like I did to him. She pointed to me. And maybe it's time we both stopped blaming other people for our own bad choices. Beverly's face went pale. For once, she didn't have a comeback. I think you should leave, Claire said, voice steady. Beverly looked at her. Then at me. Then back at her daughter again. Without another word, she turned on her heel and walked out. We stood in silence, listening to the echo of her heels on the porch, the car door slamming, and her tires crunching down the gravel driveway. That night, Claire and I sat on the back steps, watching the sun bleed orange across the sky. I'm sorry I never believed you about my mom, she said. I nodded. I know she's your mother. That's not easy to face. I spent so long defending her, thinking she wanted what was best for me. But I think she just didn't want to be alone in her mistakes. I looked over at her. She hurt a lot of people. I did too, Claire whispered. She wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her sweatshirt. I thought I needed someone else to feel alive again. Someone exciting. Brent gave me that, for like 5 minutes. Then he made me feel smaller than I've ever felt. I know the feeling, I said. She looked at me. You're a better man than I gave you credit for. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I just finally got tired of letting people treat me like a doormat. Claire leaned her head on my shoulder. Just for a second. I don't know where we go from here, she said softly. Me neither, I admitted. But I think we finally know where we don't want to go again. That night, I lay in bed alone, but I didn't feel quite as empty. Something had shifted. Not healed. But shifted. And sometimes, that's the start of everything. The days that followed felt strange, like walking through the ashes of a fire you didn't think you'd survive. Things were quiet. Unnaturally quiet. Not peaceful, just still. Claire and I didn't argue. Beverly hadn't come back around. Even Brent was nowhere to be seen, though I heard his antique shop had fewer customers than ever. Word travels fast in a small town. And betrayal clings to people like rust on a fence. Claire started staying in our bedroom again, not out of romance, but practicality, she said. The guest bed was wrecking her back. I didn't argue. I just moved over, gave her space, and we slept with a wall of silence between us. One morning over coffee, Claire asked, "Do you hate me?" The question hit like a sucker punch. I set my mug down and said, "No." She looked surprised. "Why not?" I thought about it. "Because hate would mean I still expect something from you. Right now. I'm just tired." Claire nodded slowly. "I deserve that." I didn't reply. She glanced out the window, where dew still clung to the grass. "I went back to the shop yesterday. That got my attention." "What for?" "I needed closure," she said. "Brent wasn't there. Just his assistant." I walked around and tried to understand why I did what I did. "And?" I asked, though my stomach was tightening. Claire's lips curled bitterly. "It wasn't about him. It wasn't even about you. It was about me being so messed up from all the pressure, from Mom constantly comparing you to some fantasy she had in her head. I got lost trying to live up to everyone else's version of perfect." I didn't say anything for a minute. Then I asked, "Did you find what you were looking for?" "No," she said. "But I didn't expect to. Sometimes, the answers don't show up in neat little rows." I nodded. That much, I understood. Later that week, I stopped by the hardware store for a replacement hinge, and Dale behind the counter said, "Heard you gave Beverly a good serving of the truth." I grinned. "I just told the story the way it happened. Town's been buzzing about it," he said. "People always suspected something off about her. You just confirmed it." I wasn't looking for glory. But knowing folks had my back, that helped. When I got home that evening, Claire was on the porch swing. She looked up and patted the spot beside her. I sat down, and we rocked gently in the fading light. "There's something else," she said after a while. "I talked to Dad." That surprised me. I hadn't seen Ron since the cookout. He'd been keeping his distance, like he wasn't sure whose side to be on. "What did he say?" I asked. Claire stared ahead. "He said he knew about Mom for years. About her and Brent. Said he didn't leave because of me. Said he figured he deserved what he got, because he worked too much and was barely home. He blamed himself." I shook my head. "That's not on him." "I know," Claire whispered. "But guilt runs deep in this family." She looked at me then, really looked. "I don't expect you to forgive me. But I want you to know, I'm trying. Not just to fix us, but to fix me." I searched her face. I could see pieces of the woman I married starting to show again. Not completely. Not fully. But enough to make me hesitate before walking away. "I know," I said quietly. We sat there, two people torn apart by lies, our own and each other's, but held together by something we didn't have a name for yet. Maybe it wasn't love, not the way it once was. Maybe it was something quieter, more cautious. A kind of fragile truth. After the sun dipped below the horizon, I stood up and said, "You hungry?" Claire smiled faintly. "Only if you're cooking." "Deal," I said. "But no complaints if I burn the meatloaf again." She laughed, really laughed, and it was the first sound in weeks that didn't feel like a memory. That night, while the house settled around us and the night bugs sang their chorus, I thought about everything we'd gone through. About Beverly's poison, about Brent's smug grin, about all the cracks that split our life wide open. But I also thought about the porch swing. And the quiet laughter. And how sometimes, surviving the worst doesn't fix everything, but it gives you a place to start. I didn't think life would ever feel normal again, not really, but somehow, in the quiet, awkward spaces Claire and I shared, a rhythm was starting to form. We weren't healed, not even close, but there was an understanding now. A kind of fragile truce. The talk on the porch, the meatloaf dinner, the quiet chuckles, it all felt like breathing again after being underwater too long. Claire was making an effort. She came home early from work. She started asking me how my day was, even if her voice trembled like she wasn't sure she had the right to care anymore. And me? I stopped pretending I was okay. I stopped hiding the hurt behind jokes or walking around like I didn't still see the image of her and Brent in that damn antique shop every time I blinked. I told her that. Told her it still haunted me. She cried. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to fix it. But just when I thought we were making a little headway, the past showed up like a drunk uncle at a wedding, loud, messy, and unwanted. I was working in the garage, patching up the old lawnmower, when Ron's pickup pulled into the driveway. Claire was out running errands, so it was just me. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked out to meet him. Ron stepped out, slow, like his back hurt. Or maybe his heart did. "Hey," he said, his voice worn. "Got a minute?" "Always," I said, though I had a feeling this wasn't just about catching up. He followed me into the garage, where the smell of oil and cut grass hung in the air. "I heard what you said at the cookout," Ron said, not dancing around it. "About Beverly and Brent. About what happened back then." I braced myself. "Yeah?" He nodded. "You told the truth. Folks around town, they whispered for years, but nobody ever said it out loud. Till you. You mad about it?" I asked. He let out a long sigh. "No. Just tired." I already knew, but hearing it out loud, it hurt more than I expected. I nodded. "I didn't say it to hurt you. But I couldn't let her keep tearing into me, pretending like she was holier than thou. She wrecked my marriage with her words, and then turned around and did the same thing to you years ago." Ron sat on a stack of old tires. "You know, I stayed with her because of Claire. Thought maybe if I just toughed it out, it would all smooth over. But it didn't. Just got worse. Beverly's always been that way, cold when she doesn't get her way, cruel when she does." We sat in silence for a while. Then he looked at me with tired eyes. "I want you to know something." "What's that?" "You're not a loser. You never were." That hit me harder than I expected. He went on. "I should have said something sooner. When Beverly started chirping in Claire's ear, I should have stepped in. But I was too checked out. I didn't think anyone would listen to me. Now I see I was just being a coward. I didn't say anything. Just gave a slow nod." Ron stood, dusted off his jeans. "Claire told me she's trying to fix things. I hope you let her. But only if you want to. Don't stay out of guilt, and don't walk away out of pride." Then he added, "If you ever need help swinging a hammer or fixing up this place, you call me. We men, we need to stick together when storms roll through." I smiled. "Thanks, Ron." After he left, I stood there in the garage, the hum of summer cicadas cutting through the stillness. I thought about everything, about how betrayal can echo for years, how silence can rot a marriage, and how sometimes, truth doesn't destroy people, it frees them. That night, Claire and I sat on the porch again. Same swing. Same quiet breeze. "Dad came by," I said. She blinked. "He did?" "Yeah." Said he knew all along. Said he forgives her. And said he wants to see you happy again. Claire looked like someone had just handed her a piece of her childhood back. "I miss the version of us before all this," she whispered. "So do I said. "But maybe the next version doesn't have to be perfect. Just honest." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I can live with that." We sat there as the night stretched out, two broken people slowly learning how to speak a new kind of love, one built not on fairy tales, but on truth, survival, and the courage to start again. And somewhere, in the cracks of all that pain, I felt the first real flicker of hope. The days after that porch conversation slipped by like warm wine through an open screen door, soft, careful, and honest in their own small way. Claire and I weren't fixed, and maybe we never would be. But something had shifted. The wreckage of everything we'd been through, Brent, her mom, the antique store, the humiliation, the fury, it didn't feel like a weight anymore. It felt like would you salvage after a fire. Still scarred, still blackened, but maybe strong enough to build something again. And then came the town meeting. Now, I know what you're thinking, what's a town meeting got to do with anything? But around here, those meetings are more than just zoning complaints and budget talks. They're where the town breathes. Where secrets hang in the rafters and grudges whisper down the pews like ghosts. Beverly was there, dressed sharp like always, arms folded across her chest, face tighter than a church drum. She hadn't looked me in the eyes since the cookout blow-up, and honestly, that suited me just fine. Ron sat 2 rows behind her, quiet, looking like he'd aged 5 years in 5 weeks. Claire was beside me, her hand curled around mine under the bench, something she hadn't done in months. And that little squeeze told me all I needed to know. Then, right there during a dry speech about water usage, the antique store came up. Someone mentioned the place was closing down, Brent was selling it and leaving town. Whispers circled like hawks. I caught Beverly's eye for the first time in weeks. She tried to keep her expression still, but something slipped. A twitch. A flinch. And right there in that packed room full of old folks and bored teens and tired workers, I stood up. I got something to say, I said. The room quieted like someone cut the air off. I looked around, heart thumping in my chest, not because I was scared, but because I was finally calm. Finally ready. A while back, I was made into a joke in this town. My wife cheated on me with the antique clerk in that shop you're all talking about. Right there in the back room, behind a display case full of broken watches. Her mother, Beverly, stood by, smug as a fox, telling her daughter she deserved better than me. That I wasn't good enough. That I was a loser. A few gasps. A couple heads turned toward Beverly. Her lips tightened, but she said nothing. But here's what no one wants to say, I continued, voice firm now. That same antique store. Years ago, that very same clerk, Brent, was with Beverly. While her husband was out coaching football, while her daughter was just a kid, Beverly was playing the same dirty game. Right there in the same place. More gasps. Some people covered their mouths. Others whispered. She thought I wouldn't find out. Thought I'd just take it on the chin and walk away with my head down. But I'm not that guy anymore. I'm not gonna carry everyone's secrets to protect people who were happy to see me fall. I looked around the room, and then directly at Claire. Her face was pale, but her eyes, they were locked on mine, proud and broken and brave. I made mistakes. But I stood by my wife. I forgave her. I chose her. Because unlike some people, I believe folks can change. I believe love can survive the worst of us. But I won't stay quiet to protect the ones who made their lives out of breaking others. With that, I sat down. No drama, no shout. Just truth laid out like firewood, waiting for someone to strike a match. Beverly stood up and walked out. Not a word. Not even a glare. Just silence. Claire didn't follow her. Afterward, people came up to me. Some awkward, some kind. Some slapped my shoulder. A few even said, "Good on you." Ron just gave me a nod, quiet, tired, but thankful. Back home, Claire and I sat out on the porch again. It was cooler now. Fall was coming in slow. "I didn't know you were going to do that," she said. "I didn't either," I admitted. But it needed to be said. Claire was quiet for a moment. "Do you still want to be with me?" I looked at her, really looked at her. This woman I married, who hurt me, who betrayed me, but who stood by me now in a way she never had before. I do, I said. But only if it's the real us this time. No lies. No outside voices. No poison from the past. She nodded, teary-eyed. The real us. Just you and me. We stayed out there until the stars took over the sky. We didn't say much after that. We didn't have to. The night didn't need words. It just needed honesty, and we had finally found some. And as I sat there, fingers tangled with hers, heart a little bruised but still beating, I realized something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace.